Tony Green.
John Judge.
I'm Ken Moore.
We are the Pinehills Tree Club. During the process of trying to figure out where we're going to build, we're trying to feel what the view would be like from each home or each building. And sometimes that requires a lot of walking through the woods, and sometimes it requires climbing a tree to get an understanding of what that view might be.
So we climbed trees. We would try to get to an elevation that a first floor home to try to visualize what the views would be when the neighborhood was built. And that would help us site homes, site roadways, and clearing limits to try to create the best views we could get.
But as the oldest member of the tree group, I always either tried to stay on the ground or the lowest branch, because if anybody fell, someone needed to call 911.
There was one time where we were driving through the woods in a four-wheel drive truck, and we'd gotten to a place where the truck was tilted in such a way that we could not see the downhill portion that was awaiting us. And actually our commercial guy was in the back. Unfortunately, the back door of that truck didn't open, and as we went over the edge, John got out of the truck, I think frightened that he might not survive the descent.
And at that time I felt that going over the hill, not knowing how steep, how far, how long on the other side, was probably not the best choice. And we all make different choices. As I was getting out of the vehicle, Tony said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Someone has to be available to call 911. I'm getting out."
But we're here and the truck was intact, and John didn't have to call 911.
Well, let me tell you a story about to get to these sites, especially early on in the project. We did a lot of walking, site walks to building sites, site walks for roadways, and everybody was always invited to that. The salespeople would come along to establish some pricing or some view premiums. And this one particular day I remember, and we were walking, I think it was in the Forest Edge area, and a blood-curdling scream came from behind us. And as it turned out, one of the saleswomen stepped on a snake, and I think when she screamed, I think they actually heard her voice downtown Plymouth. But that kind of did that sidewalk for most of the folks, and I do remember that the participation after that was a little bit less.
So if it weren't for all the trees that John and Ken and I climbed to make it so that we could understand those views and the ways in which we could preserve those views for homeowners and hide the roads and cars, trying to get exactly the view that you now have as you're in your living room looking out at the trees that were preserved in the view that was already here that we just had to find.